This is One on One with Mason Votes, and today we are sitting down with Congressman Tim Ryan, Democrat of Ohio, representing the 17th District. Congressman, thank you for being here with us.
Good to be with you.
You're a member of the House Armed Services Committee and a member of the House Budget Committee. Those are both two really important committees that are getting a lot of attention in the news. So let's talk about the budget. As you know, there's $1.2 trillion in cuts, both defense and domestic discretionary spending that could go into effect if the House and Senate don't come to an agreement on how to reach the set cuts that need to be made. So what will the sequester, what will result from that?
I think it would be, first and foremost, very damaging to the economy. I mean, we're still in a very fragile recovery. We have had close to many months of job growth where we're actually adding jobs to the economy. But I think a sequestration, which would cut billions of dollars out of government spending, would pull money out of the economy and could very well lead to a double-dip recession for us. So I think it's very dangerous. The cuts on the defense side, I think, are dangerous too. Not necessarily because we don't need to trim defense spending, because I think we do, but I think it needs to be done in a mature way where we're actually looking at different programs, what are bringing programs are bringing value, what aren't, and then you base your decisions on what you're going to cut on that. If you have a program that's very valuable, why would you want to cut it 10% when you're going to cut a dog of a program by 10% too? Why not get rid of the dog and keep funding for a program that's good? And the same goes for education, these other programs as well.
Yeah, and you represent Akron, Ohio, where you said you have Lockheed facilities. Defense manufacturing takes place in the district that you represent. So right. This will have a major impact on Akron.
Yeah, Akron and Youngstown, because it's really all of Northeast Ohio. We have a large manufacturing base, and a lot of times it's not just the companies you would think of, like a Lockheed Martin. There are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that do parts and component parts that are in the supply chain that will also be affected. And like I said, I think if you make those immediate cuts now while the economy is down, then you're going to pull money out of the economy, and it's going to damage a lot of those small businesses.
Now, transitioning from the budget to defense, with the appointments of David Petraeus to the director of the CIA and Leon Panetta as Secretary of Defense, do you see the U.S. moving towards a system of defense that's heavily relies on the use of intelligence capabilities, or is this just an adaptation to the threat of terrorism?
I think they're so intertwined now. I think they probably always have been, but it's a lot more apparent now because things are so decentralized, and I think we learned that after 9/11. We learned really the hard way how important intelligence is and how that has to be as aggressively pursued as anything else. And I think a quality, aggressive approach with intelligence can prevent a lot of war, which is the idea, really. But these are experts in their field and have been around for a long time. So I think it's a natural evolution for them to be interacting with each other all the time.
Yeah, and Pakistan is a diplomatically sensitive area of discussion, but since you sit on the Armed Services Committee, are we still heavily involved in the region, and we're still heavily involved in the region? Do you believe it's essential to understand the tribal culture, understand the tribal culture that defines the tribal areas of Pakistan in order to defeat the continuous threat of terrorism, or is this issue more a far-reaching socio-political one that's too complex to solve?
Well, obviously it's very difficult. The cultural issues are key. I think prior to President Obama, I don't think there was much appreciation for how important the cultural understanding would be as we move forward in maybe a more aggressive way in that region. But I think it gets back to some of the basic issues that we have in the world. I mean, poverty, disease, these things are issues in a lot of these countries. And when you look at the fact that half the world is living under $2 a day, it's a major problem. So I think what we do with foreign aid, what we do with our diplomacy, what we do with USAID, what we do with the Peace Corps, these kinds of things, although they're not They're difficult to work with in some of these regions. They're very, very effective. And I went to Pakistan a few years ago. We went up, I think we were in northern Pakistan. There was a school that was built up there with United States money, and it was a school for girls. And what they told us was, in that region, there was a 7% increase in the favorability rating for the United States than there was in any other part of the country, and that's because they saw some of the benefits of what we could do. And that's why I think our foreign operations budget needs to be beefed up, and we need to look at diplomacy and these investments as strategic and very, very important in preventing a lot of these, a lot of the animosity, I think, that people feel against us.
And you spoke a lot about diplomacy, and obviously with the recent attacks in Libya and in Egypt on our consulates and our embassies there, what do you feel? How do you feel the response to all of the violence has been handled by this administration, but more importantly by people trying to quarterback on the news and talk about, oh, the administration failed here, or more could have been done?
I think. Quite frankly, Mitt Romney's response to this has been pathetic. I think it's trying to score cheap political points at a time when the country's supposed to be coming together. He didn't even know at the time that it was an ambassador that was killed yet. It was shoot first, aim later. And I think that revealed to the American people something, and you've noticed that was the beginning of a deep downslide for him in the polls. I think Obama, although I've had my disagreements, I think the president has handled this in a very mature way. And you think about the complexities in all of these countries with different ethnic groups, different religions, different loyalties, different agendas, and it's just very difficult to balance all of these things. And you have to do it in a mature way, and make sure that the American interests are clearly defined, that we know what those are, and can we have an impact. And I think the President and Secretary Clinton have done a pretty good job of it so far.
All right, I want to just talk about your book, because that's why you are here today. Yeah. You wrote a book called A Mindful Nation. Tell us a little bit about why you wrote it, and how in these tough times you stay so optimistic.
Well, I wrote it because I started to meet people who are, I think, creating what I call in the book a quiet revolution of increasing our ability to be aware of what's really going on with ourselves and around us. People who are helping other people increase their ability to pay attention, to actually be in the present moment. It's so easy today in society, and college students especially, to get pulled in a million different directions. The massive amounts of information that come at us today it's never been seen before. The fact that the average teenager sends 3,000 or 4,000 text messages a day, all of the websites, the music, the noise, the TV channels, and we get caught up in a world where we're thinking a lot about the past, something that has happened, or about the future, something that will happen, we anticipate to happen. And that brings a lot of anxiety. And so the book is about the practice of mindfulness, which helps. It's a meditation technique that helps us to be grounded in the present moment and to see ourselves, try to get pulled in these areas, but to really stay focused, because it really is the only time we have is right now. This is it. There's nothing else. And what I found after I did a short retreat of practicing mindfulness, a silent retreat, there are tremendous health benefits of reducing stress, boosting your immune system, allowing your body to heal itself quicker because you're pulling out a lot of the stress. It helps us to pay attention more. It helps us activate the part of our brain that is very important for learning, the prefrontal cortex. It helps us cultivate our attention span. All these are essential to learning. And so I make the argument in A Mindful Nation that we should implement mindfulness and infuse it into our curricula in our schools, and our healthcare system is a great way to prevent a lot of disease from happening. And then also as a preventative measure in the military, but also for a lot of these soldiers that are coming back, it could be very helpful for them to ground themselves after some very difficult times.
Yeah, you speak about instituting it into our curriculum in education. I saw a video on YouTube of you doing some yoga with some students. So are there places out there, are there schools out there that are instituting yoga and things of like practices of mindfulness out there that you've seen that have been effective?
Yeah, they're very cutting edge. We actually have them in 2 schools back in my district, in Youngstown City Schools and Warren City Schools. The program that you saw on the internet was an after-school and summer school program in Baltimore. If anybody's watched The Wire in those very tough neighborhoods, that's where a few of my buddies are, and they're teaching yoga and mindfulness to these kids in the inner city, having tremendous impact. Johns Hopkins is now interested, and they're studying it now because they see the effect that it's having. So it's happening here or there. And with the Mindful Nation, I wanted to basically throw gasoline on that. I wanted to just highlight the heroes and the pioneers that are studying this stuff. It's really interesting because it's being studied at Harvard, Yale, UCLA, Stanford, Emory, Miami, Florida, University of Michigan. I was with the head of the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute. They're using mindfulness. The Marines are using mindfulness. Phil Jackson, the great basketball coach, used it with the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers. Corporations are doing it. Google, General Mills, Target. Lots happening out in the tech world because of the high stress. And we've got to figure out a way to ground ourselves, or we're all going to be fried in a few years.
You should bring some of your colleagues along. Maybe we'll get some more stuff going. You're fixed in Congress if everybody just grounded themselves and took a deep breath once in a while.
Yeah, no, I think what will happen is if it gets infused in the culture, that people that are elected to go to Congress will reflect hopefully the mindfulness of their constituents.
And finally, as you know, it is a presidential election going. There is a presidential election going on, and obviously the home state that you come from of Ohio is always, as Ohio goes, so goes the nation. So, with the polls showing the president leading by 4 to 5 points on average. You were just home, I assume, back in Akron and in your district. What is the feeling like in Ohio right now? Does the president have a good shot to repeat there?
Yeah, I think so. The last handful of polls I've seen in Ohio have had the president up anywhere from 4 to 10 points. The Columbus Dispatch poll came out today, had him up 9. So he's doing well. Romney has fallen since the Libya incident, and then the 47%, and now the ads are really hammering that home. And I think we now just need to get the vote out. We have a huge ground game that's happening in Ohio. We have maybe 4 or 5 different field offices in counties. So, and I represent 4 different counties. There are 5 field offices in neighborhoods where people are organizing, going out to vote, registering people to vote. Early vote starts this week, dragging people to the polls over the next month. So I think between the slippage of Romney in the polls and our ground game, I think Obama's going to win Ohio, and it looks like he's up in a lot of the other swing states as well.
Have you had a chance to campaign with the president when he comes into town?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he's visited Akron and he's been all over.
Yeah, we were just at Kent State this week where I got to see him, and we had a great crowd at the basketball arena at Kent State. And there was about 6,500 people there, a lot of kids, a lot of students, really energetic. He's been getting good crowds when he comes into town. Joe Biden's been in town a bunch. So he's getting the crowd. The base is energized again, and I think a lot of the independents, when it does get down to a choice, it's easy to criticize, but now it's okay. It's Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney. And I think the independent voters on the issues of what Obama has been able to do with the economy, although it's not as good as we want it, but he saved the auto industry. That's a big issue in Ohio. He's taken on China on a couple of trade issues. That's been very important. But now what we're seeing is these independent, middle-of-the-road people, 55-year-old or so citizens, are now concerned about what Romney and Paul Ryan would do with the Medicare program, because their adjustments force a senior to come about $6,000 more out of pocket for Medicare. So people are saying, well, wait a minute, I'm getting squeezed already. Now I can't even rely on Medicare. I'm going to have to come more out of pocket. So these issues, I think, have solidified Obama in Ohio.
And before we let you go, since we are a college campus and a lot of college students will see this, do you have like a message to send to them as to young people just in general, is why they should exercise their right to vote, regardless of who they vote for? At the end of the day, exercising your right to vote is something that a lot of people have fought and died for. So is there something you would tell college students?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think there are issues that will go one way or the other, either help college students or not. And I can tick off how Obama's better on Pell Grants, better on student loans, better on energy, more tolerant on a lot of the social issues, I think, that are important for young people. But I think your vote is going to determine what kind of future we have. And I think with Obama, we have an exciting future that wants to invest in the research, invest into the sciences, invest in the energy, and create an environment where young people coming out of George Mason would want to participate in. What's the new way we're going to generate, store, transmit energy? We're still figuring that out. And college students are going to participate in shaping that. And do you want to be a part of shaping that, or do you want to go this other way and we just do the same old, same old? Their vote will swing. And what I tell college students in Ohio, and I think the same would apply in Virginia, our Democratic governor ran last in 2010, lost by 70,000 votes. And that came down to about 2 or 3 votes per precinct in Ohio. So every little precinct matters. And when you have a college campus that can get organized, that can shift the course of an election.
Well, Congressman, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Got it.
This is One-on-One with Mason Votes. We just sat down with Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio. We thank you again, and this is Shane Smith reminding you to be aware, get educated, and vote.